much more central. It was in Vrindavan and in Goshala. There were so many people in the very beginning of the course, but then for the beginning of 11th Canto, Mataji Narayani, she was starting the class, and then she saw so many people came for the class. And she said, wow, so many people came. How many of you will actually stay for studying the 11th Canto? And then she felt like, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, I know another one. So Prashanta is also going to be there. So it was like 5 people. So not many people are very interested in structurally and systematically studying. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to maybe give a little bit of overview of first cantos that we finished through, and then, but first we'll read this first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th Canto. It's the first verse of the first chapter of the 11th Canto. Okay. We can read it. Can we do it together? Just do it. It's a simple anustup, so it's no problem. Shri Shuka Vacha Kritva Daityavadam Krishna Saramo Yadubikrita Bhuvam Maram Jadishtam Janayam Kalim. Translation. Shri Shukadeva Goswami said, Lord Shri Krishna, accompanied by Balaram and surrounded by the Yadu dynasty, executing the killing of many demons, then further, to remove the burden of the earth, the Lord arranged for the great battle of Kurukshetra, which suddenly erupted in violence between the Kurus and the Pandavas. And purport, I'll read some. I don't actually know who wrote this purport, but I suspect it was a combined effort. The 11th Canto of Srimad Bhagavatam begins with a reference to the pastimes executed by Lord Krishna in the 10th Canto. The beginning of the 10th Canto describes that when the earth was overburdened by demoniac rulers, the personified earth, Bhuni, approached Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes, begging for relief. And Brahma immediately went with the demigods to approach the Supreme Lord in his form of Kshirodakashaya Vishnu. As the demigods waited respectfully on the shore of Milk Ocean, the Supreme Lord announced through Brahma that he would soon incarnate on earth, and that the demigods should also descend to assist in his pastimes. Thus, from the very beginning of Lord Krishna's appearance, it was understood that he would descend to earth to remove the demons. And then commentators also quote Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on this verse has given a summary of the entire 11th Canto as follows. We come to this just in a few minutes. I wanted to give a structure of what we came to. And the structure of Bhagavatam is quite complicated. And it makes it even harder for us to see the structure, because especially now, because the 10th Canto is so big. It's bigger than all the other cantos put together. So by the time we finish the 10th Canto, even some parts of 10th Canto didn't have any commentaries. Like we were going really fast through the verses, but still, it's a very large canto. Okay, thank you for embarrassment. Hare Krishna. It's very embarrassing in Vedic terms to receive a garland from a qualified Brahmin, from a Brahmin family. It's very, very, very embarrassing, but I'm really grateful for your mercy. So the overall structure of Bhagavatam is actually complex, but in the same time you can put it in very simple terms. The first 2 cantos are the introduction, And the last canto is, most of it is a conclusion of the Bhagavatam. Then, in the very beginning of the Bhagavatam, the process of approaching Bhagavatam is given in the first 3 chapters, and you could say that just in one shloka that we usually chant before the Bhagavatam, I would present exactly this perspective on the Bhagavatam. Nashta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam Bhagavata sevaya. So, just these words, not too much Sanskrit. Abhadreshu, meaning an unwanted things in our hearts, they can be cleansed. By how they can be cleansed? But nityam Bhagavata sevaya. So, this process of Bhagavata seva is rather their TV is off, I can tell you the truth. It's very, very effective. And it's actually so effective that out of all the angas of bhakti, in a sense, it's the most effective. In which sense it is? We know that the king of all the angas is chanting kirtan. Kirtan is the king, it's like the undisputed leader. But it's the combination of kirtan with approaching the Bhagavatam that makes Anartha-Nivritti happen. Because it's described in many places in the Bhagavatam that unmotivated or offensive chanting will not produce any effect. And to clear yourself from anarthas, you need to very carefully study Bhagavatam. And the structure of the Bhagavatam comes at a very crucial point of Bhagavatam. It's the end of the 2nd canto. The 2nd canto was quite an important part, because in the end of the 2nd canto, it's the first time out of 2 instances that Lord gives the direct knowledge to Brahma. So this one is the most important. That's called the Chaturshloki. So the Chaturshloki are given, and immediately after them, the contents in the first verse of the last chapter of 2nd canto, the contents of the Bhagavatam is given, the 10 topics. Now, majority of the acharyas agree completely on how those topics correspond to the structure of Bhagavatam. There is no disagreement, except for 2 exceptions. Vallabhacharya, he always says something different from everybody else. And Jiva Goswami is extremely intellectual, and even commenting on this verse that we see here, he would talk about a different topic of the 11th canto. But in essence, there is no difference. But he analyzes, and instead of applying one topic to one canto, he sometimes applies several topics to each canto, because that's how it is. So, from the point of view of the acharyas, the 11th canto is about moksha. He says it's about nirodha, which is a literary description of what will happen with the Yadu dynasty. They will be nirodha, they will disappear. So, generally, acharyas agree that the last canto is about nirodha, or dissolution of the universe and everything else. So this one is coming back to the 2nd canto. So the 2nd canto is the end of the introduction to Bhagavatam and the beginning of the 10 topics. So the topics are quite important, but essentially it's not so difficult to understand what are those topics. I don't even want to give you the Sanskrit terms, because otherwise, after 10 minutes, you're gonna get a little tired. And it's a winter and all the windows are closed, so we're gonna get a bit sleepy, right? Isn't it? Creation, secondary creation, and it's easy to understand. The primary creation is about elements, and the secondary creation about what the Prajapatis do with those elements. It's quite important. And then, of course, that will be the third and fourth canto. Sthanam will be the fifth canto, which is easy to understand in a sense. It's easy to understand. Sthanam means structure, and it describes the structure of the universe. It also describes what happens with those who follow everything. And the next canto, Poshanam, talks about those who don't follow. What happens with those who are like Ajamil? Will they get the mercy? And the answer is yes, of course they will get the mercy. Even more than the Indra, who also didn't follow something. So that's coming to the Poshanam. And the topic of Poshanam, it's actually not just one canto. In this sense, Jiva Goswami is right. In every canto, there is a topic of Poshanam, or protection, that Lord gives to different types of devotees. Say, non-structured, those who fell out of Varnashram. Right? Arjamil, he dropped out of Varnashram. He basically, that was his offense. He just didn't marry right. That's pretty much what it is in modern terms. But he was out. He lost his Brahminical status. But even then, he got Poshanam, the protection from the Lord. Prahlada Leela comes again, the same topic of Poshanam actually. And even when the Manvantaras and Ishanukanta, the 8th or 9th canto, are described, they are also about Poshanam. Of course, the Leela of Prahlad is in a sense about Uti, but the Uti is a really hard one to understand. And the reason why it's hard to understand is because we never seen it happen. We never seen an initial seed of karma triggered by something. It's very much connected to the topic which Bhaktivinoda Thakur said we should not debate or follow the jiva from the spiritual world. And it's connected to the fact, and Acharya said that everything comes from those curses. So there are two types of utis. The one type of uti is the curse of the Kumaras. And this uti is unauspicious uti, a curse. You know what is curse, right? Nobody knows what is a curse, but you know. So the curse means it will happen, right? You cannot get around it. So this is inauspicious uti that happened to Jaya and Vijaya. But then there's unauspicious uti, and that was the uti that Prahlad received. Even while in the womb, that was the uti of Narada Muni. So Narada Muni, he gave a blessing that this boy will be victorious, nobody's gonna defeat him. And everybody thought, what a great blessing to receive for Dhanava. but that uti actually came out as an amazing protection for Prahlad, a positive uti. So in a sense, and somebody who is very, very qualified, Jaya and Vijaya, guardians of Vaikuntha's 7th gate, they received the uti, which caused them to come in this material world. And Prahlad, from Vaishnava, he received the uti, this change of karma's wheel, Vibhuti is the dynamic initial impetus of karma. He changed the swakarma of Prahlad just by the blessing and by giving him instructions. He makes him into Vaishnava among Danavas. Unbelievable feat. It's one of the favorite leelas of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He would listen to it again and again. Swarup Damodar would read it and he would just go in ecstasy listening about Prahlad. So the structure of it is apparently not connected to the anarthas. But we know that to get to the 10th canto, to realize and hear in a proper mood about the pastimes of Krishna, you need to be either Paramahamsa or Nirvatsala. You need to be completely pure from either envy or all material desires. I don't know. Okay, now I don't know how to get rid of envy. I just couldn't figure it out. But for material desires, the Bhagavatam gives structure. And the structure is that once you come to the 9th canto, you should be free from kama. The kama is actually the reason for anger, the reason for mada, matsarya, for everything. It's the root cause of everything, kama. So, every canto, starting from the 3rd canto up to the 9th canto, have a little bit of things that will test how much is your kama affecting your hearing. Because once you come to the 10th canto, specifically to 5 nectarian chapters in the middle of the beginning of the 10th canto, if you have kama, it will really distract you. You will not be able to follow. Unless, of course, you got the Krishna book by Srila Prabhupada, that gives amazing mercy. But I remember one story, and that happened to me in real life. One of my students, it was like 20 years ago, he studied, I think, Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Shastri, and then I met him in Mayapur, and he was also studying Bhakti Shastri there. And he was confessing to me that he was reading the 3rd canto, and he came to these chapters, 23 and 24 specifically, and he said, how can a devotee read these chapters? I saw that his mind was disturbed. He said, it describes all those details of sense gratification that Devabhuti enjoyed after all the tapasya. She enjoyed sense gratification. And he was, I couldn't get it. I was like, I just read it, it was just Bhagavatam for me. But for him, it's actually triggered him. He was quite a influential devotee. And I saw that his emotions were triggered by this chapter, 24th chapter, describing the Devahuti's own thing. He also was triggered, and I didn't want to, in the end of the 31st chapter, it's the story of Prema. And he was also triggered by that, and he was saying, how did Brahma got to this situation? He was chasing his own daughter. I just listened to this, and then later, studying Bhagavatam, I heard this explanation that every canto, after the 2nd canto, has a bit of things that will trigger your anarthas. And the rule is, if you see that you're triggered, you go back to the 1st canto and again study 1st and 2nd canto. And then you come to this point and you see, oh, it doesn't trigger me anymore. I'm okay, I can go to the next canto. But then he came to the 4th canto, and then in the end of the 4th canto, there is like a huge, very important story. The whole 4th canto describes 3 kinds of anarthas. But in the end of it, there is a story that again tests you. First 3 stories, the anarthas ignorance. We know what happens when there are conflicts in ignorance, and that was quite advanced people, like Jaksha and the followers of Daksha, and Shiva and followers of Shiva. The conflict was so bizarre. I mean, to find a better word, you can find a better word, but it was a bizarre conflict in ignorance. They came out to the level of extreme violence, killing each other, destroying sacrificial arenas. It's an anartha of ignorance, and that's actually a description of what just mentioned briefly in one shloka in the previous canto by Kapila Dev. Kapila Dev says that there are three kinds of devotional service that are affected by the three gunas. The first kind of devotional service that is affected by three gunas is when you just fight with other devotees, and then it's just literally described in the pastime of Daksha Yagya. The next one is also an anartha, but a successful one. The anartha which was transformed in the process of application and led to a success. It's anartha of Rajaguna. Devotional service affected by Rajaguna is extremely motivated. It brings you to the end by any means. Even if you're 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and you go to the forest and you do it because you want to achieve the end. He was motivated by the Rajaguna. That's not a secret. But Dhruva Maharaja's story is so inspirational that despite this motivation, in the end, in the process of it, he gives up this motivation. He says, wow, I was looking for the broken glass, and now I got real diamonds. Why was I looking for this? But anyway, he got what he wanted. That's a problem with Anartha in the Rajaguna, because then even if you practice devotional service and you are motivated by this, you will get what you wanted. And the last one is the hardest one to understand. The sattvic devotees are aiming for liberation, but also it's an anartha to expect everybody else to follow Dharma. You have to follow Dharma. Why not following Dharma? You have to follow. He ended up, Priti Maharaj, even he's an incarnation of Lord. He ended up fighting with Earth because, he was demanding that she performs her Dharma. But in the end of it, the root cause of all the anarthas again described, Puranjana, who was such a successful king, but then in the next life, and it's equally bad to become a man in the next life and women in the next life. Don't take me like I am some sort of chauvinist, but and then he becomes a woman. That's the name of the chapter. A Puranjana becomes a woman. It's an allegorical story, because sometimes we think, the stories in the Bhagavatam are not meant for application. But when you read something which is allegorical, you have no choice but to apply it, because it's not the real one, it's allegorical. So I have to learn from it. Okay. But it doesn't mean that when you come to the 5th canto, that you're completely free from anarthas. You may still have some anarthas, and they could be a little bit more structured, or anarthas which happen not by your own will. Meaning, there are different problems that devotees face. Sometimes it happens because you did something, and as a reaction for this, you suffer. Now, in the 5th canto, the anartha is slightly different. Specifically, Priyavrata is a classical example. It's a classical example of renunciate, that he is told by his authorities, you have to get married. Now, that's like somebody was discussing this topic ad infinitum in the Brahmacharya ashram. If your guru tells you to get married, should you get married? And the conclusion was, no, you don't have to get married. But in this case, Priyavrata had to get married. He didn't have a choice. it was put in front of him as something he cannot discuss. So that's a little discouraging for those who practice austerity in the forest of Naimisharanya. But then there's another story comes up, and it's again about attachment. And again, Vishwanath Chakravarti and other acharyas, I think Sridhar Swami also, they confirm that that happened not because of the fault of the devotee, but it was the will of the Lord. Bharat Maharaj, or Priyavrata was the will of the Lord, definitely. It was explicit. But Bharat Maharaj, who achieved bhava, it's the perfection. He actually achieved bhava. But the will of the Lord was to show to us that what happens if you still get attached when you achieve the perfection. And he was not attached to his wife or children or anything like that. He was just attached to a little deer. A little deer? I mean, what's wrong with that? It's all followed the Dharma. He followed Dharma and he protected the innocent. But even then, Lord wanted to show. And that's a hidden meaning of this, connected to the 10th canto. That if you don't have an established higher bhav, but you achieve bhav, it's also a little bit unstable. So, that seems to be almost there, but then a serious anartha comes in the 6th canto, and again, it's a testing ground for you. If you hear the story of Ajamil, and that, I'm telling you the truth, so many devotees, after reading the story of Ajamil, want to be like Ajamil. It's unbelievable. They come and say, well, if I, when I will be dying, can I just, if I name my son like this, will I be okay? And the answer is no, Prabhu, it doesn't work like this, because Ajamil didn't do it consciously. You cannot expect that he will get the same mercy as Ajamil, because he did not commit the offense of knowingly disregarding the instructions. He did it unknowingly. Now, if you start imitating Ajamil and say, I will be like Ajamil, it will be really cool for me. No, it doesn't work like this, because then you will be chanting offensively, and then you don't get the same effect as Ajamil did, because he was chanting he was in a, Prabhupada calls it a clearing stage. He was chanting Namabhas. He gets everything from Namabhas, even unknowingly. And that story of Ajamil is such a killer. But it also tests a devotee for the anarthas, and then if he goes further, he can actually analytically see how much Ajamil is more fortunate than Indra in the same canto, who rejected his guru out of pride. Ajamil did not display pride. He did not display anarthas the same as actually Indra did. Indra is another didactical character. So many people talk about, it's easy to criticize Indra, isn't it? I don't know. But the 7th canto seems to be going really smooth, and hardly any tests, and you probably would not even notice them if you are not attentive. But if you are attentive, and if you were questioning the reasons of the birth of Narada in the 1st canto, if you remember that Anartha-Nivritti that Narada went through before he achieved his Sita body in the body of a Shudrani's son. He was born as a son of a Shudrani, and he was just so lucky to associate with advanced devotees. But going through the whole 7th canto, structure of 7th canto is very simple. The first 10 chapters is Prahlada Leela, and then there are chapters which describe Varnashram. And of course, Varnashram is very specially described in the Bhagavatam. It's like 5% of Swadharma and 95% of renunciation. It's amazing how much stress is on renunciation. And then in the end of it, in the very last bit of the 11th Canto, and it's, even if you study structurally, it's easy to miss. This is this story of how Narada got the curse. He tells it very discreetly. He doesn't want to publicize it, but there was a problem there. And different acharyas explain it in different ways, but in essence, he was just some people say that he was chanting the names of demigods. Some acharyas said, no, his offense was, he was just dancing in the kirtan and enjoying company of beautiful apsaras around him. He was just enjoying this. He was not taking it seriously as a service. So, and he became a son of a Shudrani in the next. For us, of course, son of a Shudrani is, for me, it's way up there in the scale of things, but it's a problem. Again, the 8th Canto is probably. It has a double blow. I don't know if when I was a little kid, I was like 15 years old. I was studying little martial arts, and I learned about the double blow. You know the double blow? I'm not supposed to say it, but my Radha's TV is off, I can tell you. It's a blow. When you hit somebody, you don't stop. You hit them also with the elbow. So there is a hit, and then there is a little pause, and the person thinks, oh God, that's it. That's not it. The last thing, you hit it with the elbow. So there's a double blow in the 8th Canto. 8th Canto comes up, and it sounds like just a conflict resolution canto. The conflict between demigods. It's almost like a political science canto, but no. It has this amazing chapter where beautiful, in the end of 8th chapter and beginning of 9th chapter, Mohini Murti comes. And it's the one in a series of many avatars of Ajita. He comes as, and that's a mind-boggling, he comes as a lady. And before that, she came. And she was an embodiment of wealth, prestige, the best possible wife for anybody. Everybody, all the demigods and demons wanted her to be their wife. Everybody. And then she went around everybody and she counted doshas. This guy is good, but no. And then this is also good. And Lord Shiva is so good in all the qualities. He lives in inappropriate places, I wouldn't want to live with a person like this. And then he comes to one person who is completely qualified. And it's the only person who doesn't really need her. Because he already have everything. It's an interesting story, but it's just an introduction to the fact that the Lord comes himself. Even Acharya says that Lakshmi is inside him at this time. So Lakshmi is overshadowed. The most amazing woman in the world is overshadowed by the beauty of Mohini Murti. And Mohini Murti, unlike anything you've seen in Vedic culture, you've never seen it before. An amazing humor. She captures the mind of demons by irony and again, if you're moved by this pastime, if you really feel like, wow, that's a woman, at this moment you're disqualified. You have to go back to the first canto and start from the beginning, because it means you didn't. And it's a double blow, because after this, if you didn't move, and there is a whole chapter filled with virya ras, one of the prime rasas in any composition, poetic composition. And that rasa, describing all the ugly creatures and the fights and the amazing fighting stories. And then there's another chapter, 10th and 11th chapter. So the 2 chapters for virya ras. And it's a lot of things which are, you can make a movie out of those two chapters, the fight between demons and demigods on the bank of the ocean, them riding horses and elephants and camels, and then a huge whale eating mystical creatures, 8 legs, and red-faced and white-faced monkeys, and it keeps going, and the description of blood, and all of this is what Virya Rasa does. It stimulates your Rajagun. It's actually, that's the reason why so many people watch the battlefield stories or things like this, or just read about it. It gets you out of Tamagun. Actually, it's good, but it stimulates Rajagun, and then it shows the real potency of Mahini Murti. Even Lord Shiva is bewildered by her. So now, if you're not touched by that, keep going. And that's when you come to the point of 9th Canto. And in the 9th Canto, the beginning of 9th Canto, the first story, is almost a repeat. It's almost a repeat of Puranjana's story. It says, King Sudyumna becomes a woman. And then again, about attachment to a woman. Then Pururava is attacked or covered by the Urvasi. Urvasi is the most, it's actually a special Apsara, it's not Apsara of this of regular spectrum. It's a special gift to Indra, and Urvasi actually is seducing Pururava. So it's actually quite a simple story. And by that time, you should be quite steady so that you can approach the 10th Canto. But there is one gap. We still think that there is happiness. Seriously. And we say that Lord Rama is an example. He is such a perfect example for all the Rajas of how to follow Dharma. And if I will be like Rama, I will just follow all the rounds of Dharma and will be so chaste and do everything right, and then I will be happy in this material world. And it's an amazing thing about Bhagavatam, that the story of Rama, you wouldn't believe it, but it's the only place in the whole Puranic and Itihasic literature where the story of Rama is a story that gives us a lesson that material family life is not a piece of cake. Everywhere else it's a celebration. Everywhere else everybody celebrates Diwali and this festival and that festival, and it's all so inspiring. But the pessimistic note of the story of Rama is, it's actually very shortly explained in Bhagavatam, but the main thing is to stress the fact that even Ram, after capturing Sita back and bringing her back, wasn't happy. It was actually a story with unhappy ending, which is, it's obvious, but it's not obvious in other places. In Bhagavatam it is obvious. So once you got all those stories, and then you felt, and you actually cleared of all the anarthas, then you can come and properly hear the 10th Canto. There are two types of hearers of the 10th Canto: those who already achieved perfection, and sadhakas like us, those who did not achieve the perfection. For those who achieve perfection, for Paramahamsa, the 10th Canto is the most nectarious Rasayanam Katha. It's a place where all the nectar, it's a mature fruit of all the Vedic literature, all those things they read in the Puranas and Itihasas, and they studied Vedanta Sutra, and this is this sublime, blissful, solid nectar, no No, it's like a manga without the what you have in a manga, the things that you take out, seed and what else? The skin. Okay, so this is the manga without seed and without the skin. It's like full nectar. There is no jnana, no karma there. It's completely blissful for Paramahamsas. For us, it's still, and that's important to understand, it's still a way to purify ourselves from the desires which usually come. And once you come to the 11th canto, you're expected to be fully Krishna conscious. And if you are fully Krishna conscious, then you can get the essence of this canto. The essence of the 11th canto, and now I can go to the structure of 11th canto, is quite amazing. The reason why it's amazing, it's how much time I have, not much. It's because it's a canto where you have a hidden gem, which basically means that you're so tired by the time you come to 11th canto, you don't have strength to study Uddhava Gita. And acharyas don't publish it separately. You don't distribute Uddhava Gita on the street, right? And it might you do, I don't know. but usually you don't. And it's a hidden gem because at the beginning of it's instructions of Narada to Vasudeva, first 5 chapters, and the rest of it is actually something that is connected to the closest of all the devotees of Krishna in Dwarka, Uddhava. Now, the third canto starts with Uddhava and the story of Uddhava, and the 11th canto is the end of that story. So in a sense, it's all like brackets that surrounds the most important part of the Bhagavatam. And so Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, in his commentary on this verse, number 1, in every canto he gives this commentary. In every canto, the commentary in the first verse is the summary, the order, and he usually puts it in shlokas, rhythmic shlokas. So he gives a summary of entire 11th canto. Chapter 1 describes the beginning of Maushala Lila. Okay, the whole canto is about Maushala Lila, you can say. The beginning is described in the first, and then the last 2 chapters is the end of it. So, chapter 1 describes the Maushala Lila. Who knows what Maushala Lila is? Maushala Lila. Destruction of Yadus, yes. It's a very interesting story, very interesting, because it's connected to what was described in the beginning of Purport. In the beginning of Purport, when Brahma gives instructions to demigods of what to do, Bhumi and all the demigods are instructed, you take birth as a member of Yadu family, and now you need to go back. So that's Maushala Lila, or the prelude to the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. Chapter 2 through 5 describe the conversation between 9 Yogendras and King Nimi. Chapter 6 describes the prayers of Brahma, Shiva and other residents of heaven. Chapter 7 through 29 present the conversation between Krishna and Uddhava that is known as Uddhava Gita. Chapter 30 describes the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty from the earth. That's the reason why the Nirodha is associated for Jiva Goswami, but for us it's moksha. Chapter 30 describes the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty from the earth, and the final chapter is the hardest one. I don't know if you will be able to stand this, but this one describes the disappearance of Lord Krishna. And Uddhava and Markandeya were the only people who were privy to get this confidential knowledge from Krishna at the end of the Leela. So, okay. Maybe I said something wrong, and please correct me if I said something wrong. But the idea is, by the time and that's the real name of moksha in this context, the idea is that it's real moksha. By the time you finish 10th Canto, by the time you finish 11th Canto, you're ready to go. You are actually ready to go back home, back to God. And that's the emotion that we should feel. We should not be puzzled by the fact that Krishna performs this Leela and then he withdraws this Leela. We should be anxious to go with him. And in a sense, what helps, and that's the reason why there's so much jnana kanda in the 11th Canto. For somebody who did not cut off, all the anarthas are cleared, we are completely free, but still there's a little bit of attachment to this material world. You need to hear jnana kanda. You need to hear some jnana about detachment from matter, because devotees don't care. They don't care. They can take birth again. But Krishna does care that he wants to have them with him. Devotees don't want liberation. Krishna wants them back with him. So it's interesting that commentators did quote Vishwanath Chakravarti, and it's the latest of the acharyas that we usually quote. And Vishwanath Chakravarti starts the 11th Canto with the mantra. They didn't quote the mantra, but he would start with the mantra, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chandraya Namaha Govardhanadhari Dharam Shrimad Govardhana Prabhum Pranayama Shri Guru Bhuyam Shri Krishna Karunarnavam. I repeatedly offer my obeisances to my spiritual master and to Shri Krishna, the ocean of mercy, the lifter of Govardhan hill, the supreme lord of Govardhan. And Karunarnavam, the ocean of mercy, and that's the form of. Interesting that in every canto, Vishwanath Chakravarti uses this poetic addressing to Shukadeva Goswami, which is extremely hard to translate. Lokanatham jagat chakshum shisukam tam bhashraye. It's very hard because it's literally, if you translate, you just don't understand. It's the eye of the world. Jagat chakshum, meaning he is the eye of the world. Lokanatham, the savior of the world. It's hard to understand, but that's his vision. But then he says, Gopa Ramam Jana Prana Priyashi Tiprabhu Shave, who is the most dear to the Gopas and the covered women of Braj. So Shukadeva Goswami is a dear speaker of this Bhagavatam. And unlike Bhagavad Gita, in Uddhava Gita you have a chapter that glorifies the damsels of Braj, the gopis. It's knowledge which is surrounded by jnana, so that no unqualified person should touch it, because you should be completely qualified to even talk about gopis. But it is there. It's in 11th Canto. This is like the nectar of 11th Canto. And the whole point of the 10th Canto is that it talks about those devotees and the Bhagavatam as the tadiya Tadiya Priya Dasasya. I offer myself as a servant of the dear devotees. Tadiya doesn't mean just dear devotee. It means somebody who is just part of it, like like Lalita Vishaka. They're not devotees. They're just part of this Leela. It's not that like Tulasi Devi. She's always on the feet of Lord Krishna. It's Tadiyam. It's very close. So it's not even Raganuga following Ragatmika. It's Tadiyam. It's very close. It's not even Parshats. They're inseparable parts of Krishna. And yes, once we offer those obeisances, and then Acharyas and Vishwanath Chakravarti offer the contents, Maushala pastime begins. And it's a whole story about the curse, why it happened, and how it was all arranged by the Lord. And there are 4 chapters of prayers, but the most important is Shri Krishnudhava Samvado. Then 33 chapters, Tritya Tata. The 23 chapters of the dialogue between Shri Krishna and Uddhava. This is like the nectar that we get to, and then there is the pain a little bit in the end, the destruction of the Yadu dynasty, and disappearance in the last chapter. And it's very clear, it's plan of the Lord, but it's so many questions have about this plan, devotees. It's very easy to understand the plan, very easy. It says you have to go, and if you leave anywhere where I am, or if it's in a holy dham in Dwaraka, you're not going to go back to your respective posts, you're going to go back to Godhead. Now you have to go back to your respective posts. Therefore, go to this particular place, and that will be arranged in this particular way, and nobody can kill you, you kill each other. Here you go. Very simple plan. But then the most important thing, Vishwanath Chakravarti says, Tat evam darsama skande, meaning described the 10th canto. The 10th canto describes amazing pastimes, nectar-like pastimes. And these pastimes delighted and astonished devotees. But the next canto shows that liberation, what it means. Liberation means taking shelter of Lord Krishna's lotus feet. And author Vishwanath Chakravarti says now in the 11th canto begins to narrate what little remains of those pastimes, introducing them by repeating the previously stated words beginning with Kritva. Yeah. So this is the beginning of those last pastimes which help us take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Okay, I have those commentaries by Jiva Goswami and Sridhar Swami. Sridhar Swami is very close to what Vishwanath Chakravarti says, and Jiva Goswami is not. But it's all very interesting. But maybe it's not enough time. So, any questions you have about the anarthas? Any clearance of the anarthas? Don't do it in the temple room, go somewhere else, clear your anarthas and come back happy and smiling. Isn't it? A Happy New Year means everybody comes together and chants and dance together after they cleared all the anarthas. That's Happy New Year. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, if it's working, yes. It's just for me because the Radhadesh TV is off, so it's perfectly fine. You can just say.
Okay, yeah. You gave an overview of all the cantos, and it said that first canto is like lotus feet.
Yes, Pada Pada.
And the 10th canto is like the smiling face of Krishna.
Yes.
So when it comes to 11th canto, what that would be?
The crown. Yeah, that's right. The crown, yes. Yes. And it's beautiful crown, yes, and it's Ganesha. The smiling face of the Lord is the most attractive part, but then to make sure that nobody thinks that it's a sentimental, some coward boy, everybody just worship him. There's a beautiful crown of Jnana on top of it, which is the most exquisite jewel-like Jnana, free from Advaita actually, but is very, very beautiful. The crown of the Lord, and yes, that's what I heard. But yeah, I don't know. The first two cantos of his Lotus Feet. The first canto is 1 foot, and another canto is another foot, and each canto has a certain number of chapters, and then each chapter is correspond to one symbol on each foot of the Lord, and then it's from there on the real body of the Lord starts, and the beautiful crown that we came to still reflects in some of the biggest jewels of that crown. You will see reflection of the most nectarious pastimes of the 10th canto. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Yes. Oh no. Okay.
So Prabhupada wrote Krishna book as a summary study of 10th canto, and it was widely distributed among the devotees and people in general.
Mm-hmm.
Without preparation through all these cantos before.
Yes.
Can you comment on that?
Yes. I will actually. I will, instead of commenting on this, my words are useless. I will just read you the introduction to the 8th canto, which explains this. First of all, let me offer my humble and respectful obeisances in the lotus feet of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhakti Goswami Prabhupada, sometimes in the year of 1935, and that's a story which happened exactly 90 years ago. When His Divine Grace was staying at Radhakund, I went to see him from Bombay. At that time, he gave me many important instructions in regard to constructing temples and publishing books. He personally told me that publishing books is more important than constructing temples. Of course,